All right, so you ready to talk sportswear? Today, we're going to take a deep dive into how workout gear is made.
Yeah.
And more importantly, how it's evolving.
Yeah.
We're going from those old inorganic fabrics to the newer, more sustainable organic options.
Right.
Our guide for this journey is an article called The Evolution of Sportswear Manufacturing.
Interesting.
So, before we get ahead of ourselves,
Okay.
let's break down the basics.
Sure.
What exactly are inorganic and organic fabrics?
Yeah.
What makes them different? I mean, can you just break that down for us a little bit?
Well, you can think of inorganic fabrics as the synthetics,
Okay.
like your polyester, nylon, spandex.
Right, those are the common ones, right?
Those are the common ones.
Yeah.
These are the materials that kind of give your workout clothes that stretchy, sweat-chicking magic.
Right, gotta have that, right?
But here's the catch.
Okay.
They are derived from petroleum.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, we're talking fossil fuels.
Okay, so that's where the inorganic part comes in?
Yes.
All right.
Organic fabrics, on the other hand,
Right.
come from natural plant-based sources.
Okay.
Think organic cotton, hemp, or even bamboo.
Okay, so
Yeah.
one comes from oil, the other from plants.
Exactly.
I got it.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, what's the big deal with making the switch? I mean, does it really matter that much?
The big deal is the environmental impact.
Okay.
And it's not just a small difference, it's a huge difference.
Okay.
Because inorganic fabrics are synthetic. They don't biodegrade easily.
Right.
We're talking centuries for some of these materials to break down.
Centuries.
Yeah. They pile up in landfills and contribute to microplastic pollution.
But I've heard that term microplastic pollution thrown around a lot.
Sure.
What's the real impact of that? What does that even mean?
It's more insidious than you might think.
Okay.
These tiny plastic particles end up in our waterways and oceans,
Right.
where they're ingested by marine life.
Right, I've seen pictures, yeah.
This can disrupt the food chain and even work its way up to humans, impacting our health.
So it comes full circle.
It comes back to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing organic fabrics are the heroes in this story, biodegradable and all that.
exactly.
Okay.
They break down naturally, returning to the earth without causing that long-term harm.
Right.
Their production process is also typically more sustainable,
Okay.
using less water and energy.
So it's a win for the environment all around.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Now, the article also mentioned a company called Hamd Textile Industries.
right.
They're making waves in the sustainable sportswear scene.
Yeah, they're really interesting.
What sets them apart? What are they doing that's so different?
Hamd Textile is doing more than just talking about sustainability.
Okay.
They've really committed to using organic cotton, reducing their reliance on those synthetics we talked about.
Right, so they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. And plus, their production methods are eco-friendly from start to finish.
Wow.
They use low-impact dyes, energy-efficient machinery, and even prioritize fabric recycling and upcycling programs.
It's impressive that they're not just changing their materials, but their entire process.
Right.
They're really trying to make a difference, aren't they?
It seems like it, yeah.
But this brings up something I've always wondered about.
Sure.
Is organic cotton really all it's cracked up to be?
That's a good question.
I've heard it can be resource intensive to grow.
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right to be critical.
Yeah.
It's true that organic cotton can require more land and water than conventional cotton.
Right.
However, the environmental benefits, especially in terms of reduced pesticide and fertilizer use, often outweigh the drawbacks.
Yeah.
And Hamd Textile goes a step further by implementing water-saving techniques and partnering with farms that prioritize responsible land management.
So they're addressing those concerns head on.
They are, yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest, sometimes when I hear about all these eco-friendly initiatives,
Uh-huh.
I wonder if it's just a marketing ploy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do these changes really make a difference, or is it all just greenwashing?
It's a valid concern,
Yeah.
and it's important to be discerning.
Yeah.
But in Hamd Textile's case, their commitment goes beyond just marketing.
Okay.
They've received numerous certifications for their sustainable practices,
Oh, wow.
and their transparency about their sourcing and production processes gives consumers confidence in their claims.
So there's some accountability there.
There is, yeah.
They're not just slapping an organic label on something. They're backing it up with concrete actions. So
Exactly.
that's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
So they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk,
Right.
but focusing on just one company. Even one as impressive as Hamd Textile
Sure.
feels a bit narrow.
Yeah.
What about the broader sportswear industry?
Uh-huh.
Is it realistic to think this kind of shift to organic materials could happen on a larger scale?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
And it's something we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, I'm hooked. Let's take a quick pause and come back to unpack the challenges and opportunities of making sustainable sportswear the norm.
Sounds good.
So we're back and ready to tackle that big question.
Okay.
Can the entire sportswear industry really embrace organic fabrics?
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like kind of a daunting task.
it definitely presents some challenges.
Yeah.
But the momentum is building.
Okay.
As consumers become more aware of the environmental and health impacts of conventional fabrics,
Right.
they're demanding more sustainable options.
So consumer demand is a driving force.
It really is.
That makes sense, but what about cost?
Yeah.
Aren't organic materials typically more expensive?
That's a common misconception,
Okay.
but it's not always the case.
Okay.
While organic materials might have a higher upfront cost,
Right.
remember that inorganic fabrics come with hidden costs too.
Like what?
Environmental damage, health risks,
Oh,
and even like the economic burden of dealing with textile waste.
right. Yeah, all the stuff we talked about.
When you factor those in, the picture becomes more complex.
Right. It's not just the price tag.
Exactly.
But even if the costs were comparable,
Mm-hmm.
scaling up production to meet the demands of like a global industry,
Right.
that seems incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. It requires significant investment in infrastructure and innovation. We need more organic farms, more eco-friendly processing plants,
Right.
and a more robust supply chain for these materials.
Makes sense.
And let's not forget about research and development into new technology.
Yeah. Speaking of new technologies, the article mentions something about biodegradable synthetics.
Yes.
That sounds almost too good to be true.
Right.
How does that even work?
It's a fascinating area of research.
Right.
Scientists are exploring ways to create synthetic fabrics that can break down naturally
Okay.
without leaving behind harmful microplastics.
Right.
One approach involves using plant-based polymers,
Hmm.
essentially like mimicking the structure of traditional synthetics, but using renewable resources.
So instead of relying on petroleum, we could be using plants to create high-performance fabrics.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
But are these biodegradable synthetics actually as durable and functional as the traditional ones?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Researchers are still working on optimizing these materials to meet the performance demands of sportswear.
Sure.
They need to be able to withstand sweat, abrasion, and repeated washing without compromising their biodegradability.
So a lot of hurdles to overcome.
There are, yeah.
But let's say we do figure out how to make these biodegradable synthetics a reality.
Okay.
What happens to all the fabric waste that's already out there?
That's where the concept of a closed-loop system comes in.
Okay, I've heard that term before.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Imagine a system where textile waste is minimized
Okay.
and materials are constantly being repurposed.
Okay.
Old clothes could be transformed into new garments or even broken down into their base fibers to be used again. Okay, so kind of like recycling, but for clothes.
It is like recycling for clothes.
Okay.
The key is to keep those materials circulating within the system instead of ending up in landfills.
Okay, that makes sense. But can you give me like a real world example of how that could work?
Sure, imagine a company collects old sportswear from consumers
Okay.
and then sorts and processes the materials.
Okay.
The polyester from those old workout shirts could be broken down and turned into new fibers, which could then be used to create new garments.
Wow.
Or perhaps the cotton fibers could be recycled into insulation for jackets or padding for furniture.
Huh. Okay.
The key is to keep those materials circulating within the system
Instead of ending up in the landfill.
instead of ending up in the landfill, yeah.
But even with all these innovations, isn't there a risk that companies will just use this sustainability as a marketing tactic without making any real changes?
Yeah, you're right. To be skeptical, greenwashing is a real concern.
So how can we be sure that companies are actually committed to doing the right thing?
That's why transparency and accountability are crucial.
Okay.
Consumers need to demand more information about how their clothes are made,
Right.
and companies need to be willing to be open about their supply chains and manufacturing processes.
Transparency is definitely key, but
Yep.
it feels like it goes beyond just individual companies, right?
It does.
It seems like we need like a systemic change.
Absolutely. We need industry-wide standards, government regulations,
Oh, wow.
and a collaborative effort from designers, manufacturers, retailers, and consumers to truly move towards a sustainable model.
That's a lot of moving parts.
It is.
It's overwhelming to think about everything that needs to happen.
Right.
So what can we as individuals actually do to make a difference?
Don't underestimate the power of consumer choices.
Okay.
By choosing organic fabrics and supporting brands that prioritize sustainability,
Right.
you're sending a clear message to the industry that these values matter.
So every purchase is a vote.
I like that way of thinking about it.
Yeah. But beyond just our buying habits, are there other ways we can advocate for change?
Absolutely. Stay informed about the issues.
Okay.
Support organizations that are working to promote sustainable practices.
Right.
And don't be afraid to ask questions and hold companies accountable for their actions.
Okay. I'm feeling inspired.
Good.
But before we get too carried away, I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Those hidden costs associated with inorganic fabrics.
Yeah.
We talked about the environmental damage and the health risks.
Right.
But what about the economic burden of textile waste?
It's a significant problem. Every year, tons of clothing end up in landfills.
Right.
Where they take centuries to decompose.
Yeah.
This not only takes up valuable space, but it also creates environmental hazards
Right.
and contributes to greenhouse gas emissions.
So it's like this never-ending cycle of waste.
It is, yeah.
But if we could shift to that closed-loop system where those materials are constantly being reused and recycled, wouldn't that have like a positive economic impact as well?
Absolutely. It would create new jobs in the recycling and remanufacturing sectors.
Okay.
Reduce the need to extract virgin resources.
Right.
And ultimately lead to a more resilient and sustainable economy. It's about shifting from a linear take, make, dispose model to a circular model where resources are valued and kept in use for as long as possible.
That's a powerful vision for the future.
Yeah.
Are there any companies out there actually implementing these closed-loop systems on a large scale?
There are some exciting examples emerging.
Okay, like what?
Patagonia, for instance,
Okay, yeah, I've heard of them.
has a robust program for repairing and recycling their products.
Wow.
And they even encourage customers to buy less and wear their clothes longer.
Really?
And some smaller startups are experimenting with innovative recycling technologies that could revolutionize the industry.
It's great to hear that there are companies out there pushing the boundaries and showing what's possible.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, sometimes when I hear about all these complex solutions, I feel overwhelmed.
I understand.
Is it really realistic to expect the entire industry to change?
Change is never easy,
Right.
but it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
And remember, every journey starts with a single step.
True enough.
Yeah.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Good.
I'm ready to hear your final thoughts.
Okay.
Where do we go from here? What does the future hold for the world of sportswear?
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the hidden costs of inorganic fabrics to the potential of biodegradable synthetics
Right.
and closed-loop systems. I mean, it feels like we're on the cusp of a major transformation in how we make and consume sportswear.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
But where do we go from here? What's the next chapter in this evolution?
That's the exciting part. The future is still being written.
Okay.
But if we look at the trends and the innovations we've talked about, I think we can paint a picture of a sportswear industry that's truly sustainable and ethical. Okay. I love a good vision of the future.
Yeah.
What does this sustainable sportswear utopia look like?
Imagine a world where performance and sustainability go hand in hand.
Okay.
Athletes can push their limits wearing gear that's not only high-performing,
Right.
but also made from renewable resources, biodegrades naturally, or can be easily recycled back into the system.
So it's like a win-win for athletes and the environment.
Exactly.
How do we get there? What are the key steps we need to take to make this vision a reality?
Well, firstly, we need to continue investing in research and development.
Okay.
Biodegradable synthetics and closed-loop systems are still in their early stages.
Right.
There's a lot of work to be done to make them scalable and cost-effective.
So innovation is key.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I'm guessing it's not just about technology, is it?
No.
There's a human element to this as well, right?
Absolutely. We need to shift our mindset from a disposable culture to one that values durability, repair, and reuse. Imagine if we took as much pride in repairing our favorite workout shirt as we do in buying a new one.
Yeah, that's a powerful idea, seeing our clothes as investments rather than throwaway items.
Right.
But that kind of cultural shift takes time.
It does.
What can we do in the meantime to start moving in the right direction?
Remember, every choice we make as consumers sends a message.
Okay.
By choosing organic fabrics,
Right.
supporting brands that are transparent about their sustainability practices, and advocating for change, we can create demand for a more ethical and eco-friendly industry.
So it's not just about buying different clothes, it's about changing the system as a whole.
Exactly.
But I have to admit, it feels a bit daunting to think about taking on such a big challenge.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Start with small steps.
Okay.
Educate yourself about the issues.
Uh-huh.
Make conscious choices about the clothes you buy.
Right.
And support organizations that are working to make a difference. And remember, you're not alone in this. There's a growing movement of people who are passionate about sustainability.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And together we can make a real impact.
That's inspiring. It feels like there's a lot of hope for the future of sportswear.
I think so too.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier.
Good.
The role of government and industry regulations.
Sure.
What kind of policies need to be in place to support this transition to a more sustainable model?
Well, for starters, we need stricter regulations on the use of harmful chemicals in textile production.
Okay.
And we need incentives for companies to adopt more eco-friendly practices,
Okay.
such as tax breaks for using recycled materials or investing in renewable energy.
So it's about creating a system where sustainability is rewarded, not just encouraged.
Exactly.
Are there any countries or regions that are leading the way in this regard?
The European Union has been at the forefront of sustainable textile policy with initiatives aimed at reducing waste and promoting circularity.
Mm.
And some individual countries, like Denmark and Sweden,
Okay.
have implemented innovative programs to incentivize textile recycling and innovation.
That's encouraging to hear. It seems like there are pockets of progress happening all over the world.
There are, yeah.
But I have to ask, what about the economic impact of all these changes?
Uh-huh.
Won't it be costly for companies to make this shift?
It's true that there will be upfront costs involved in transitioning to a more sustainable model.
Right.
But remember, the current system also comes with significant costs.
Yeah, all that stuff we talked about.
Environmental damage, health problems, and the economic burden of dealing with textile waste.
Right.
In the long run, investing in sustainability is not just the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do.
It's about shifting our perspective from short-term profits to long-term well-being.
Exactly.
But I imagine there will be resistance from some companies, right?
Yeah, probably.
Those who are hesitant to change their ways.
Sure, change is never easy, and there will always be those who are resistant to new ideas.
Right.
But consumer pressure is a powerful force.
Yeah.
And companies that ignore the demand for sustainability do so at their own peril.
It's like that saying, evolve or die.
Exactly.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me, and I hope it has been for you too, listener.
I hope so.
We've learned about the hidden cost of our current system,
Right.
the potential of new technologies and innovations,
Uh-huh.
and the power of collective action to drive change. I mean, it's a complex issue,
Yeah, it is.
but it's one that's worth our attention and our effort.
Absolutely. The choices we make today will shape the future of the sportswear industry.
Right.
And ultimately the health of our planet.
So let's choose wisely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, listener. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing for a more sustainable world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.